Welcome to the YouthMin Hangout number 25. Frank here with Ben Reed from outside of Chicago, Illinois, and Josh Fuentes in Corpus Christi, Texas. Is it Corpus Christi?
Yeah, Corpus Christi or North Mexico. That's what we like to call it.
Corpus Crispy Chicken, Texas.
Okay, that's
Um,
here.
and we're here. I just had a lock-in this past weekend. I'm still barely functioning.
Getting old, like 4 days ago.
I do. Lock-ins take like a week out of your life. But in any situation, we're here to talk about something that is actually kind of close to my heart because I feel like a lot of us are going through this. I've been getting messages and emails and been talking to folks that are in transition or thinking about transitioning or just came out the other end of transitioning. And this is a very difficult time and can be a very crucial time by the decisions you choose to make during this time. And so I was hoping that we could have a kind of a candid conversation, the three of us, talk about transitioning, talk about what that looks like before you actually make the commitment, what you could be doing during the transition, and good stuff like that. And if you have any questions, there's a Q&A section somewhere in this Google Hangout where you can ask a question, and if we have time, we'll answer those questions. So, Ben, lead us with the first question.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking where I remember last year there was a Wednesday that it seemed like within 3 hours after youth group of like the end of the year youth group, there was like 18 different people posting, hey, I just got fired from my church. So this past week it sort of came up again with, it seemed like it started where on Saturday and Sunday there was, I think, 8 youth pastors that were announcing their resignation. And it was like, oh boy, like this Wednesday is going to be a tough Wednesday for a lot of youth pastors. Just what leads to that transition or not, whether you're sort of resigning or being fired. I think all three of us have gone through major ministry transitions. Frank, you've been there 2 years now?
Yep, a little over 2 years.
So just recently. But I think one of the biggest things we were sort of just talking about is how do you find purpose in between? Like, what do you do with yourself when you're in between ministries?
I guess I'll go. I think when you're in between ministries, I think the big thing is one. I think spiritual health is probably very vital into that. Like I was talking earlier, when I made my first transition from youth ministry to youth ministry, I never realized how burnt out I was, and so I just thought to myself, you know what? When I leave this, I'll go to this church that I well know about and that I love, and so I'll go to this church and I'll just be a volunteer, and I'll be like the most amazing volunteer known to mankind. Like, I'll be the volunteer I wanted for my youth ministry. And so when I get in there the first Wednesday night, and I just realized, oh, this is a terrible idea. And so before I even started, even getting to that understanding of let's start sending out some resumes or whatnot, I actually spent about 6 months just removing any type of just ministry, being in ministry, I guess, and just being just being involved in a church and just letting God and people just pour in and loving on me. And so just getting involved in a small group and just experiencing that dynamic was huge for me. And so I think so many of us want to quickly jump to get another job, which I understand because you don't have any money, you can't pay the bills, but you could totally miss out on a very a big healing part that you may need before you actually go into another church.
What would you say? I know you had a post a few years ago about that soul care, when like a shepherd without a flock.
Yeah.
I only remember because I made a sweet graphic for it. But what your thoughts?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to the other Frank without a beard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I mean,
As you're just sitting there stroking it.
well, I was trying to hear you. I didn't hear you clearly. Before I came here, I was. I mean, I was in a special situation where I knew I was going to leave, and so I put my resignation in, and I had and you can't really do that with every situation you're in. Sometimes they'll be like, "You want to quit? Well, then that starts now," and that can be very scary and unhealthy. And so my pastor and I had a good enough relationship where he gave me some time to find a job, and then the transition between my last job and this current job was about like a week, where I was unemployed, but I still had some kind of they sent me out with some extra cash, and my new church gave me some buffer cash. So I wasn't in the situation where like, man, should I do a secular job for a short period of time? Should I, bank on my wife's job or any of those situations? But to echo what Fuentes says is one thing that you definitely should be doing in that time. Not so much necessarily, well, let me stay fresh, let me volunteer at some mega church or whatever you want to do. Dude, just be a regular Christian for like a period of time if that's afforded to you. You know what I'm saying? If that's afforded to you, to just be a person that just shows up on Sunday, join a small group, and just not do anything where you have any kind of pastoral responsibility, that's so good for your health, because that's so rare for the vocational minister to just be a regular Christian for even that short period of time. It's good for you, it's good for your spouse, it's good for your kids, just not have that responsibility while you're in that transition. Now, if you need the money and you're putting out resumes everywhere and you're still waiting, you might have to. I mean, a lot of us youth pastors, we have these like side gigs where we can like make extra cash by designing stuff, or doing some kind of weird job on the side. But if you have to pick up a job at a secular place, like as long as you're providing for your family and you're being faithful to the spiritual well-being of yourself and your family, God's not going to be like, you're not putting your trust in me by working at a Lifeway or something. You know what I'm saying? Like God's going to bless you by being faithful to your family, being faithful to the spiritual well-being of your family while you're in this transition. Because I know some people who literally quit their job and then find a YouthMin job in a week, and I know guys who have gone years waiting for that job. And I know, Ben, you were in a transition where you had to wait a long time. Maybe you could share kind of that transition, because I know there was times where you didn't know no one was coming up offering anything, and you're like, what the heck? And I think one thing that you could speak to, that I think all three of us can talk to in this process, though, is when you put resumes out, not getting feedback from them or getting those no's, it feels like such a personal attack on your ego that, like, if you're not careful, that can swallow your pride up and swallow your life up, and it can be devastating emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been in that place where it's just like, we've talked to each other like, what the heck? Do I really suck as a pastor because no one's calling me?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, and I mean, I've sort of been through both, where like when I transitioned from Southern Illinois to Boston, I think I was unemployed for like 2 weeks, not even. Like, I think I turned in my resignation on a Monday, and like a week later I was going out to like be a candidate and accept the job or whatever. Where it was real short like that too, that we just got an extended vacation, my wife and I. We've had that experience that was really beneficial, but even sort of looking back, you could say we really rushed it, where this church offered, like, yeah, sure, why not? But there was a lot more that went into it too. Like, I didn't want to go back into the church. I had a different job offer that was secular. Well, wasn't secular, it just wasn't church work. But it was in a Christian school that I ended up turning down because I didn't want to be there. All I'd say, yeah, the most recent one was sort of, I think Fuentes, you touched on it, where I'd been approached by a church basically of, hey, we want to talk to you. Prayed about it and said, you know what, sure. And then a few weeks later, before even like the second interview, word got out, and basically told, if you want to be here, we don't want you here. But they gave me several months to find a new job, and just, again, nothing was coming. Where I was really frustrated, where I wanted to be really open and honest that I took a ton of schooling, but I'm like 2 credits short from actually being able to actually receive my degree. And I didn't want to put on my resume of like, yeah, my college degree, if I can't actually receive it quite yet. And so I think there's a lot of churches that really turned me down from there. And even now, like, you have those prideful thoughts of, this is who you hired? Like, just because I'm 2 credits short, you discredited me, and then you hire somebody like that who is doing all this stuff and no good. So yeah, I totally get that frustration. And I definitely lived through that frustration where our daughter Elliot, it's actually her first year's birthday today, which is a really weird way of saying that. But she was born, and then 2 weeks later we left Boston to move in with my parents because there was nothing else really to do. Didn't want to be in Boston anymore, just a lot of hurt and frustration. But I had applied to a church in the area before we even moved, and then sort of forgotten about them, and ultimately that's where I ended up. But it took 5 or 6 months to get on the same page with them and really know that, because even going through the interview process, this isn't really where I wanted to necessarily be. There was other churches that fit, and yeah, it was frustrating because I'd get contacted by all these huge mega churches, and then I'd be their number 2 guy, and so I felt like, all right, I'm not good enough for a big church. And then I'd even go the other route and be like, all right, there's a church of like 200 people in my parents' town, I'll apply there. And then they'd be like, no, because you're going to leave the first chance you get to go to a bigger church. And it's like, all right, so big churches don't want me, small churches don't want me. Like, God, what are you doing? And yeah, like I had appointments set up with the church that I'm at. But they were so like distance between, and there was other churches that I would rather have been at the time, I thought, that I had forgotten about them even. And there was one day I remember, and I joke about this a lot, that I just woke up so mad at God and like yelling at God in my prayers. I'm like, God, I haven't heard anything. There's nothing on the horizon. There's no jobs on the job boards that like, interest me or seem like good fits. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, let me hear something. And I think within like 40 minutes of praying or yelling that at God, I had like 5 phone calls from different churches. And it was just like God was being like, all you had to do was ask. Like, I didn't know you wanted to hear from a church that bad. So it really like got my spirits up. But yeah, with that sort of struggle, that tension of feeling like what churches aren't applying and all that, there's plenty of churches that you can think that's a great fit. Like, you look at the churches like Josh Griffin, if there was a position there, who wouldn't want to work there and be like, I'd be a great addition to his team type thing. But ultimately, what I really found and what I so appreciate about the Slingshot group with David Miller was it's all about fit, where there was a guy, it was actually right about last year at this time that I went to interview, and me and the guy who was the executive pastor, like, we were really clicking, and we would have been really good friends. But ultimately, he sat me down halfway through the candidating weekend, and he was like, you know, as good of friends as you and I could be, you'd be frustrated here because of the culture, and our culture would be frustrated because of your different culture. Like, it's not a good fit, no matter how good of friends you'd be with the whole church staff. And I so appreciate his honesty, where he was like, I want to redeem the situation and give you a job before your daughter's born, but it wouldn't be a healthy one. And I think that's something that it's tough to really say. We're going back when we went to Boston. It's tough to say I'm going to willingly turn down a job because of fit when I need that money. But trusting God that God's got a greater plan, and He's going to lead you to a church that is a better fit and fits more His purposes for your life. Where there might be a church you go to, again, that just sort of takes you through the ringer, but it's being used for your benefit. It's being used to shape you more. So we actually have a question that came in before we move to our next one from Leo. It says, if you know the next school year is your last one at a church, how do you gracefully train up a leader to replace you, and how do you pastor the hearts of the students who love you? I want to touch on that real quick because, I mean, again, I knew for 6 months that I was going to be leaving Trinity, and yep, I'm doing a video real quick.
You need to get a survey for somebody.
Yep, sorry. I'll be right back. You guys talk.
Well, okay, here we go. I feel like he just got called in by his mom or something like that. So, have you cleaned your room yet, man? Anyways, you know, I think you know, if you know you're about to leave and you have a good 6 months left, I would say just start pouring into your leaders, because that's to me how you pastor the rest of the group, is that you pour into your leaders, you start making sure they know what they're supposed to be doing, and because the odds are, you know, they're going to be carrying the ministry after you, and so they're going to be carrying that load, and then on top of it, they're going to be carrying the load still when the new person comes in, because they're going to be there to help this new person get transitioned into that. Yeah. And so on top of it, they're going to be there much longer than that next person may be. Yeah. So if I have 6 months left here, I'm just going to start pouring the leaders and trying to plan out a good 6 months to a year to say, okay, here's everything that we've done. Here's a calendar for a year. This is our schedule that we've set up. This is who's in charge of it. And this is just what needs to get done, because what I've learned is that if you don't have something in place, two things happen. Either everyone goes crazy and plans like 20 billion events, and it's all over the place, or no one plans anything, and it just completely dies out. And so if you just add something in there and make sure people know what they're doing and have that set up, then that'll actually make the transition a lot smoother for you, for your leaders, and even for the next person that's going to be there.
Yeah. And I was going to say, along with that, I wrote a post that we actually tweeted out yesterday, where I think it should sort of start earlier than 6 months. Like, I think it should always be our mindset of just, if I'm not here next year, that's a tough one to say, because I mean, like, I want to be here another 100 years, I want to retire here. But like the volunteers in our churches, the students, like they're going to be there a lot longer than even the healthiest youth pastor. I mean, unless you're Keith Parker and you're at a church for 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, just building that in where it's not the one-man show, and it's sort of a tough thing to sort of let go of the pride of the youth ministry, but like doing whatever you can to build into your small group leaders, the other adults, so that if you leave, the program doesn't die with you. Build a lasting sort of, and again, the program is such a bad word or whatever, but build a lasting ministry that can be sustained by leaders, and that starts far more than a few months in advance. The other thing I'd say is if you know you're going to be gone in 6 months, like where my pastor and I had the conversation in January that I was going to leave in June, and it would have been really easy to have been taking that frustration that I had sort of pent up and complained that, like, my right-hand guy, like, I could have talked to him about all the stuff that was going on, all the things behind the scenes that people didn't know, but we had seen it with the guy who I had replaced, who had bad-mouthed the church so much that it seemed like the church split, basically, because of all the people that left. And I know and really feel convicted, like, it's not our place to shut down a church. It's not our place to sort of vindicate ourselves. And so I told the senior pastor in that meeting that even though I have frustrations, I talk about it with him, but no one else, where if anyone was going to be the bad guy in the situation of us leaving, I'd rather it be us, because we're the ones that are going to be 1,000 miles away, not the pastor. So just doing that, don't vent or complain to your students or to your leaders. Got a lot of that, and the truth will come out. If you're completely wronged, if everything was you're innocent and the senior pastor is just one of those guys who has no business being in ministry according to us, let God deal with that, where it's not our fight. But that'd be my advice.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing you could do if you have 6 months is to create such a good leadership culture that the new guy walks into something that's healthy, and they don't feel like they have to recruit a ton of leaders when they first get there. That you have a group of leaders that kind of maintain the ship very well, and you're just getting a new captain. Does that make sense? And like, I mean, that was what happened in my situation when I walked into here. And whenever that day happens when I have to leave, that those 6 months I'm gonna pour into my leaders to say, hey, this is the picture, this is what they're gonna walk into, maintain this and pass everything I have on to them. And so, you know, you have a leader that's now taking over the job of the games, a leader that's taking over small groups, and got 2 or 3 people who can run over preaching. And that way, they are doing this group mentality, running this as they. I mean, in some cases, you're training up the youth pastors as they come in. Those are very rare. But if you have this leadership team, even if you leave and they get a new youth guy 3, 4, 5 months later, they're walking into something saying, they're just waiting for you to get here so they can pass you the binder that you passed them. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the most beautiful situation. And it puts such a relief off the shoulders of the youth pastor walking in thinking, well, what do I have to do? Do I have to plan summer camp? Like summer camp's a month away. You know, like they could just say, it's been going great. Now let's finish off this semester, and I can start playing the next semester and start making it my own. I think that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, even with that, where, yeah, you're training up the other youth pastor, but at the same time, leave room for the new youth pastor to come in with vision. Where when I left one of my churches, I knew the guy who replaced me. I'd sort of been mentoring him, training him up, and going back to that whole fit thing that I talked about earlier, looking for churches. He was a perfect fit for the church and the community. I mean, he just left there a few weeks ago to go plant a church, but it was one where, like, I'd never, as frustrating as it was at the time where he sort of helped push me out, it was a God thing where my wife and I didn't fit in that town or at that church, and he did great things there that I definitely believe I helped build up that program, but he was able to take it and go with it, where fit is really important. So in our pre-show conversation, just to sort of switch it up a bit, we had talked about, we feel like for every youth pastor that's going to get fired in the next few weeks, every youth pastor that's going to resign in the next few weeks, there's 10 more out there that are looking at the job boards of just feeling discouraged of, man, I didn't see results this year, or man, I didn't see the change that I was hoping to, or the growth. What would you say to those youth pastors that they get home from Wednesday nights and they're just feeling a bit burnt out of almost that, I don't want to put labels on it, but what would you say to those sort of just discouraged in ministry right now?
I said this in a video I made about this, what we did last night, just to kind of encourage you guys watching this or girls watching this, is that like this is just that time of year. Like you're gonna have low numbers, kids are gonna come in and out, and your messages may not even be like landing as they were a couple months ago, and it's just a weird time for everybody, and I've been just everybody's just kind of bummed out and thinking like, man, forget this, and even for like a church culture, like the church numbers, we're about to enter Memorial Day or whatever, like numbers are low, and pastoral staffs are being frustrated, like all this stuff is happening. Just like maintain and wait till summer, like just hold on. And understand that you're not the only one going through low numbers and frustrating moments. You know what I'm saying? I would say this is that it should take a lot for you to resign. Like it shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't feel easy to be like, I'm just gonna let this go. Like there should be some strings and burdens attached to this where like the moment it gets you to actually submit a resume, that's after hours and hours and days of prayer and talking to wise people. It shouldn't be just like on a casual, Wednesday evening where you're like, well, that service sucked. Let's see what YouthMin.org's job board has. Oh, this church looks great. Here's my resume. Like, it shouldn't be that casual because this isn't just a normal job. There's soul and spiritual ties to this. But at the same time, there are valid reasons to leave, and maybe you're in a season where there is a valid reason to leave. But that has to be concluded after many, many days and hours of searching for wise counsel, prayer, and brother, even fasting. You know what I'm saying? Because it shouldn't be that easy. But, man, I know so many people are going through this time of year that's going to be frustrating. And I know even amongst us as YouthMin.org contributors and leaders, we've talked about our frustrations this month and talked about our low numbers. But I had one night where, like, 3/4 of my group was gone, and I'm pretty much preaching to a small group. And it's just like, I left frustrated. I told my wife I was frustrated, but we kind of just said it's just a weird time of year, man. And so we're looking forward to summer where we can spend uber amount of time with kids and just be with them because it's that time of year.
Yeah. I would say vacation. I mean, if you have not taken a vacation, I mean, you need to go on one. And I mean, for me, like I always try to do a vacation like somewhere in the springtime and then somewhere in the fall time. And I know that's really
Josh, real quick, just to add to that, like I purposely put I'm going on a cruise May 30th, and like I purposely did that between this time of after the spring graduations and before the craziness of summer, and before any other staff member can put in their time, because this is a sacred time for youth pastors where it's crazy and we need that refreshment. So I'm with you.
Yeah, because like you said, you're combating a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of it is you're coupled with you're grieving your seniors, and so you sometimes you're happy your seniors are leaving because you hate them all because you have some classes, but then you have those classes where you've really built some fantastic relationships and they are making a major impact, and I mean they're leaving, and I mean they're and they maybe even left even before they left, and so the whole youth group is feeling that, and I mean that just goes down all the way. And so you have this grieving process. Maybe you just went through, like for me, instance, when I was in school, like I would just finish the spring semester, and I was just dog tired because of just all that laying on it. So you have school plus that and everything else. And I've just learned that a vacation is just monumental to be able to go on and say, I'm taking this week off and just shut everything down. Don't talk to anyone else, and it's just me, my family, and God. And just be restored. And I mean, even sometimes it means you have to take a mini vacation too, where it's just you take one day off during the week and say, you know what, I'm not going to come in Monday. Just taking a personal day. You don't have to explain why you're taking a personal day. You just say taking a personal day, and there it is. So.
Yeah, and I would just say because I mean, last year or 2 years ago, whatever, I would have been so frustrated hearing you say that, and I think even just some of the stuff going on in our group right now of like. All right, so you told me to take a vacation that I can't afford to, I mean, even right now, I can't afford to fix. I broke the mirror off of my van putting my car into the garage at the garbage can. And I can't afford to do that, let alone take a vacation, even for a day. Where there's youth pastors out there who they look at their budget and they're like, I don't have money to do this right now, and I need a vacation right now, or I don't have the benefits to take a day off, or I'm part-time and I'm doing that. There are things out there where I think we so often, it's so easy to sort of feel, when you feel discouraged, I feel like there's tension and a chasm between you and your senior pastor or your elders, and I think a lot of times we overstate that, where I've been there, I've been in those rooms where like there's been huge beef between me and a senior pastor over just dumb stuff. But I mean, even then, if I had gone to him and said, hey, like I'm really just feeling burnt out, and I think that's causing a bit of our frustrations with each other, like is there any way, like do you know anybody, if I just need to get away for a few days or even just take a few days off? They're going to do that. They're going to support you. And if you don't, then hey, problem solved. You get a long vacation while you look for a better ministry. But your church is going to support you. And I mean, I think it was somebody at the Orange Conference a few weeks ago. I think it was John Acuff talking about, oh no, it was the guy from Elevation Church, Frank Beamer, I think it is. And he was just saying, youth pastors don't make enough to buy lake houses, but youth pastors have students whose parents make enough to buy lake houses. And so, like, there's people in your church who they're going to have places that all you got to do is ask. You might not be the one who needs to ask, maybe your senior pastor, but there's people in your church who would be more than willing to do what they can to help you out. And if it's for the longevity of your ministry, your church is going to understand that. So be willing to be bold and sort of humble yourself and ask for help from those above you. That's what they're there for. And again, if they really aren't, that's just a big clue of find a church that is willing to do that. So, and with that, there were a few other questions we wanted to talk about, but we're going up on sort of a half hour. If you have questions you want to ask, we'll be on for the next 2 minutes as we just sort of wrap this up. Oh, hey, there they are. Frank, if you are frustrated, you should go hang out with Dustin Sams.
Okay, yeah, it's my dude. I don't know.
And then, next question, what are the top 10 things you would do when transitioning into a new church? What if the previous youth pastor did exactly what you guys said in establishing an amazing ministry? What if you agree with the vision and would like to build off of it? I'll let one of you guys take that. I don't know why I'm always attracted to churches who are in rebuilding and they don't have a great youth ministry. I'm more of an entrepreneur youth pastor in that sense.
Can you see the question again?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear that.
No, come on, pay attention. What are the top 10 things you would do when transitioning into a new church? What if the previous youth pastor did exactly what you guys were talking about, established a great, amazing youth ministry, and you agree with the vision and would like to build off of it? What do you do?
All right. I think, going into church, one big question, what's God already doing here? If I can find out what God has been taking place, because, it's not my vision, it's not my whatever, I'm doing what God is doing. And, God is uniquely working His kingdom, and He's uniquely working that kingdom within each church context. So who am I to be this guy that comes in and says, this is my dream for this place, and let's do this? No. Let's ask what God's already doing here. And if you start doing that, then you'll really get to hear the people, you'll get to respect others, you'll get their love and their support, and they won't think you're some kind of jerk who's just coming in and changing everything. And so for me, it's like that's what I'm doing. And if someone's already done that, and you're totally in line with what's already taken place, I mean, you just jump in there and you start pumping that bad boy out like nobody's business. Yeah. And I mean, if anything, what you do is you find the things that, what have they done? What have they already done? What can I do to make this even better? And just keep doing what may be the same, but just give that extra push to just send it over the roof. Yeah. And so, those are actually the churches that I look for. I don't, I'm the type where it's like I want to go in that very similar with me and what I believe in. So it's not having to go in and just all this craziness around there, but instead I'm going in, I'm with these people, I love them, and we're already working together. So there's no weird awkwardness that's going in between all that. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, I like what you said. I think a lot of times youth pastors come in there to a new church and they think like, okay, what do we need to change? What can we recast a new vision, or like, and which is a good thing, is how can I make this youth ministry my ministry, not the previous youth pastor's ministry, which that will take years to do. Like, I think someone said, like, in fact, whoever wrote that comment about me talking to Dustin Sams, who's a solid youth pastor in the city, he told me, and I believe wholeheartedly, it takes at least 5 years before your youth ministry genuinely looks just like the ministry from your hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, until then, you're going to have juniors and seniors and sophomores and maybe even freshmen who remember the previous youth pastor and are going to say, well, why don't you do it this way? Until you move those middle schoolers all the way through to your senior year, it's going to be a while before this is genuinely your youth ministry. But with that being said, not all youth ministries need to change. I think sometimes what needs to change is the youth pastor and say, okay, this is working here. This is thriving. Like, I've never done a D-Now, but you guys are doing D-Nows, and you guys are killing it, and it's working. Let me form who I am to fit into this new thing called D-Now for me, and how can I make it, what Josh just said, over the top better? Well, how can I improve from a foundation that's already been solid? And so it could be like the church that your youth group goes to always goes to this summer camp, right? But you're used to going to that summer camp. Well, there's nothing wrong with that summer camp, and it's accomplishing everything it needs to do. Keep going to that summer camp. Change the way you do your ministry if it's a secondhand issue. Like he said, like, chances are, for the most part, most of us are not going to jobs. They're so on the opposite spectrum of what you believe and follow that you wouldn't go to. You know what I'm saying? If that's the situation, then you're climbing a large mountain. But in most of us, we're going to situations where we feel like we would fit in. And if they've had a youth pastor worth his salary that's done a good job, then you can follow up in there and just say, okay, let me, for the next year, not change a ton of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I might not even change the branding. I might just kind of go with everything and then make things just a little bit that much more better. And then the following year, say, okay, we need to update our logo. Then that, you know, maybe we'll add, you know, in our youth group, we never had a winter retreat. The ministry just dies between Thanksgiving and the new school year. We added a winter retreat, and that was something we added to this ministry that took us over the top. And so, man, be patient. Like, if you're entering a good situation, keep following that good situation unless things are, like, glaring obvious. Like, you're, like, you know, hemorrhaging half your budget on T-shirts every year. Okay, yeah, change that. Don't use half your budget on T-shirts every year. But if it's working, stick with it, because last thing you want to do is, for the sake of your ego, uphaul everything that's been built for the past few years by this good youth pastor simply because you want to change the youth group to Josh Fuentes' Face Youth Ministries. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do that.
Fantastic.
Especially don't do that.
Especially don't do that. Just be patient, man. And honestly, that was my story here. Is like a lot of the stuff for the youth ministry perspective was really, really good, and the guy took care of it. And all I did was I updated the youth logo and I added Winter Retreat. Now, since then, 2.5 years later, there's a lot of stuff that's different. I removed some programs, but that first year, I kind of just held my seatbelt tight and just went for the ride, and just preached my messages, and it was good. It was good.
Yeah. And then there's other situations where you walk in and there was a terrible culture built up that you have to change a lot. Like, I know Nick Farr went into one where he was basically told he had to change a lot of stuff, and similar with here, where just previous things that go on are not healthy. You'll know that in the interview process, and you'll know more what kind you are. Where I do believe there's different kinds of youth pastors. There's entrepreneurs, and I don't mean this in the derogatory sense, but there's the maintainers. We've already found a better word for that, but like somebody who's going to come in and say, hey, here's a good program. I can sort of just tweak it, keep it going smoother, make it better. Or somebody that can come in and say, hey, here's a program that's falling apart. I can blow it up and make it good again.
Mm-hmm.
And I need different kinds of youth pastors. But yeah. So discover that in the interview process. So that is all the questions we have. And I know we're going, I think we wanted to do like 20 minutes. We went 40, something like that. We'll throw this up on YouthMin.org as a blog post, and we'll put in links to different things we talked about, different blog posts, because even Fuentes, you didn't mention it, but I know you got a blog post about what is God already doing at work in the ministry. So
Yeah.
I want to go reread that one as well. So thank you guys for joining us. Had a lot of viewers today and good interaction. And we're trying to do this every week. Sometimes it doesn't happen because different schedules. But anyways, thanks for joining. Have a great week, and praying for you all this week. It'll be a tough one. We're here for you guys. All right. God bless.